Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 when I post videos to this channel. Yes, I have two YouTube channels. The other is Eric the Car Guy. But here on ETCG1, I start things off with, hey, if it's your birthday, happy birthday. Please enjoy this digital confection that I found for you. In today's video, I'm going to revisit a topic that I've discussed in the past, and that is catalytic converter theft. And in this video, I'd like to offer you 3 different options as far as helping to prevent catalytic converter theft on your vehicle. To summarize, catalytic converters have precious metals inside them, and they are worth lots and lots of money these days, hence the reason they're being stolen so often. And a catalytic converter thief armed with something like this, a cordless Sawzall, can have the catalytic converter removed from your vehicle in less than 5 minutes. I know this because they stole the catalytic converter off of my Honda Element parked out in front of my shop. I caught them on tape, and well, it took them less than 5 minutes to do it. And they had the converter off, and they were out and down the road. That being said, I have 3 tips, as I said, to offer you as ways of helping to prevent that theft in the first place. Now, in a previous video, I said park in a well-lit area, try to be in a parking garage, just try to watch out for where you're parking. But to be honest, people are getting their catalytic converters stolen right in their driveway, and as I said, in less than 5 minutes. You would barely have time to react if you were able to react in time before they were already headed down the road with it. So one of the things that is suggested is that you put identifying markings on your converter. And I will say that this will deter some thieves, but not all thieves. It really depends on where they're caching those catalytic converters in. But if you etch your VIN onto the outside of the catalytic converter, and when you do this, what I would suggest you do is not put it on the shielding around the outside of it. Many catalytic converters have shielding around the outside. And well, it can be removed and the catalytic converter underneath is no longer identifiable. Also, high temperature, high visibility paint is something else. Local police departments have done this. They've had things where you can bring your vehicle in, they'll put it up on their lift and they'll paint their catalytic converter for you. But I'll be honest, this is really more for law enforcement than anything else for prosecution. Because think about it, if somebody cuts a catalytic converter off of your vehicle and there's no identifying markings on it, how are you going to be able to say that that's my catalytic converter and they stole it from me? There's really no way to do that. But if it has some identifying markings on it, if it has your VIN on it, well, perhaps then the police can use that to prosecute these people on your behalf. But I'll be honest, the catalytic converter that was stolen from my vehicle, that I caught them on tape and everything, there's been 0 progress with that, and honestly, I never expected there to be any. As I said, if there's no identifying markings on it, there's no way to identify it as your catalytic converter or the fact that it's stolen, so that becomes a gray area and makes prosecution somewhat dicey. But high visibility paint, marking the outside of the converter with your VIN can help identify it as your converter. Now, a better option, in my opinion, is something called a catalytic converter security system. There are companies out there, in fact I did a video with them, Cat Security, that manufacture these pieces of metal, if you will, just basically these shrouds that go around the outside of the catalytic converter and help enclose the entire thing, making it, well, very difficult to steal in 5 minutes, I can tell you that. And I can say that most catalytic converter thieves are really looking for the easy money, and if they see something like that, that the catalytic converter is completely shrouded and difficult to get to, I wager they're going to move on and not do anything with it. Another option would be, instead of purchasing something, I've seen, well, since I've posted those videos, people have sent me pictures of people that have welded cages around the outside of their catalytic converters. This is also going to be a really good deterrent. As I said, if you could make it so it's going to be difficult for them to steal your catalytic converter, they're probably going to move on because they want to get it, they want to get in, they want to get out as quickly as possible. So if there's rebar welded around the outside or it's encased in some kind of metal housing, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to remove that converter, and they'll probably move on as a result. So that kind of a theft deterrent is really cool, except if your catalytic converter ever needs servicing. It's designed to keep people out and make it difficult to access the converter. If you ever get a check engine light or something like that for your catalytic converter, and it's encased in something like that, or you welded something around the outside of it, well, you're probably going to have to cut all that stuff off in order to get to your catalytic converter in order to service it. So that can be kind of And here's the third option, and this is this crazy idea that I had that was in my mind, and it pertains to the 2003 Honda Pilot that is above me right now. And yes, it's locked down on the lift. It's not coming down on my head, don't worry. The reason I parked myself here under this Pilot is because taking a look at it, it doesn't really have the space or the provisions because of the drive shaft that passes so close to the exhaust for one of those catalytic converter systems that encloses the catalytic converter. At least none that I know of. And I have concerns about parking this out in front of my shop. Did I mention they stole the catalytic converter off of my Honda Element? And by the way, those of you SUV owners or any vehicle that sits higher up off the ground are particularly susceptible to this because there's no need to lift the vehicle up to get up underneath it to remove that catalytic converter. This Honda Pilot is a perfect example of that. So here's going to be my strategy, and this is number 3 as far as the things that I'm recommending that, well, maybe you think about in order to prevent catalytic converter theft on your vehicle. Now, originally when this came in, the exhaust was all welded up on it. Somebody had done a repair on the front flex pipe, and as a result, they welded on new pipe to the catalytic converter. So in other words, right here is what they would be walking away with. This is the original equipment converter for this Honda here. And the thing about this is, original equipment converters are made to last a really long time, like 100,000 miles or so, you know, just rough estimates. And as a result, they have the most material that's desirable inside of them. So in other words, they have the most of the precious metals and are worth more as a result. However, this is my strategy. If you remove the original equipment converter and replace it with an aftermarket one, it's possible that the aftermarket converter has less material on the inside of it than the original equipment one does. Now, this particular catalytic converter looks like it has a similar amount of substrate on the inside of it that the original equipment one does. Here's a look inside of this one. So there's the substrate inside of an original equipment catalytic converter. And this one, you probably notice, has about the same amount inside of it as the aftermarket one does. I had actually 2 Honda Elements parked outside on the day that they stole my catalytic converter. The other Honda Element that was parked there had an aftermarket converter on it. And I think the aftermarket converters are less desirable to catalytic converter thieves because they usually have less material in them. It just depends on where they're being sold and where they're being used. Those catalytic converters with less catalyst inside of them actually are not legal in all states, so you may not even have that as an option. That being said, my strategy with this Pilot is going to be to install this aftermarket catalytic converter, partly because I'm trying to install a new pipe and the exhaust flanges and everything are missing and everything was all welded together, but also because it sits up high and had an original equipment catalytic converter on it. Like I said, these are worth more. So if I install an aftermarket converter, take this converter and turn it in, I legally own it, it came off my vehicle, I might be able to recoup the cost of the aftermarket converter and possibly its installation if you don't have the ability to do this on your own, just by turning in your old converter. So prove that this is your old converter, ask for it back from the exhaust shop, install an aftermarket converter on there, and, well, you may just deter thieves from stealing it. Because if they get up under your vehicle and they see that it's aftermarket, they'll think to themselves, well, this one may not be worth as much, maybe not worth my time, let's move on. Or they might think, this person's already been hit, they may be looking out for it, so maybe I should get out of here before they find me. Just another thought is just replacing your catalytic converter with an aftermarket unit that is likely going to be worth less than the original equipment unit, especially Hondas and Toyotas. They have like really expensive catalytic converters. Just price them out new. You'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, there's 3 different things that you could possibly do. And number 1 is put identifying markings on it. Number 2 is enclose it in some type of security system. And number 3 is to replace it with an aftermarket unit and hope that it is less desirable to those catalytic converter thieves. Those are my thoughts and 3 suggestions on how you can possibly prevent catalytic converter theft on your vehicle. Anyway, I'll link those other videos down in the description for additional information on this topic. I will also put a link to ericthecarguy.com, which is where I ask you to go if you have automotive questions not covered in this video. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time. By the way, I post ETCG1 videos on Mondays, so I'll see you then.